Okay, I'd like a motion to open to the public, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now open to the public. If you'd like to speak, please come up to the podium, give your name and address to the clerk. Quiet, please. Thank you.
I'm Richard Serbo. I'm on 46 Spring Valley Avenue, Hackensack, New Jersey. And last time I was here, I complained about Spring Valley Avenue, and it's still absolutely incredible. It is now a disturbance of the peace, okay? There are so many buses, not only New Jersey Transit buses, but tour buses, school buses, heavy trucks, trailer trucks, machinery, everything, plus the cars. So it is outrageous. The buses coming up from Main Street shake the homes as they go by. So it's been mentioned before. I thought I'd mention it again during this. It seems like the politics of development tonight. So I thought I'd talk about a disturbance of the peace, okay? And last time someone refuted what I said, who lived 10 blocks away. I don't know if he's here tonight, but he seemed to get a nod from everybody as if, you know, he refuting what I said, and what I said didn't really matter. So I'm here to tell you it matters, and it is a disturbance. And if I have to organize everyone on Spring Valley Avenue and get them in here or get them to sign a petition, we can do that too. So one other thing I wanted to mention was, with all this talk of development and large sums of money, millions and millions of dollars, why not a small development project of maybe $1 or $2 million can create 80 jobs at $25,000 a year? Maybe spread those around for development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Mildred Dodson, Vanderbeck. I just want to start off by saying that I apologize. I don't apologize for anything that I said last night. What I apologizing for is that I offended someone up there, that they would have me removed by a police officer after all of the other outbursts that was made last night. I was the only person that was singled out. I say it again. If it was printed on Facebook, I didn't say it. I responded to it. And when I say you don't understand what goes and what offends us in our community, that's exactly what I mean. And if I offended you all by saying anything where you would have me removed from an open meeting where you had no one else removed, and all of the loud outbursts that was going on, nobody was threatened because you had over 50 police officers sitting in the back. So nobody was surely put at any harm. But I took it in stride, and I went downstairs and I sat comfortably downstairs until my ride was available. But like I say, I do not apologize to anything that I said last night. It was written on Facebook about Mr. Sims and what he had said, and I was addressing that issue. So if anybody got offended other than you all, then I'm sorry. But I make no apologies for what I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Richard Salk in Hackensack, New Jersey. Two things I'd like to address tonight. The first is actually, they're both actually about due diligence, but the first one we'll talk about is really an urban myth. When you were reorganizing, shortly after your election, you decided and I recall your quotes, Kathy, in the newspaper, that hearkening back to 20 years ago when we had a police commissioner, and she wanted to revitalize that. Did you recall that and the statements? Yes? Okay. I'm really a believer in historical accuracy. Way back when, 1989, 1990, that council, Jack Ziza, Roger Mattei, Mark Stein, Mauro Mecca, Sandra Robinson, decided they wanted to create liaisons to the different departments. Roger became the liaison to the police department. And they had originally intended to rotate it, but he had a vice-like clamp on that. He loved it. He liked to ride around with Mike Mordaga and Bill Urato and that whole crew. And they kiddingly started referring to him as the commissioner. Now, you did a resolution. You didn't do any ordinance. You created this title. You don't have a commission form of government. You created something by way of a resolution. I mean no disrespect, Mr. Sims. You have this title, but the title, we don't have a commission form of government. And the cherry on top of the urban myth is you had the police director swear him in who has absolutely no power to swear in anybody. There is no police commissioner. This is not a commission form of government. Now, on to something else. Due diligence, not legends. At the April 21st City Council meeting, the SOAR organization came. Remember the kids from the high school? About a dozen of them. And they were appropriately honored by the council, and I think they got a great kick out. And I was very surprised and pleased to see that they stayed for the entire meeting. But what they then witnessed was the colloquy between Mr. Barretto and Mr. Battaglia, Councilman Battaglia, over what happened down at the baseball at Hackensack opening, because Mr. Barretto wore his campaign badge. He's running for Board of Education. The problem, and I'd say this to you, John, is due diligence. You said, with these kids in the audience, he shouldn't have worn the badge because, quote, there is an ordinance against it in parks in Hackensack. And that's absolutely wrong. There is no such ordinance. So I took it upon myself to send a letter to the SOAR organization, and I enclosed a copy of the ordinance so they could judge it for themselves. This is what I said to them. Mr. LaBrasse's statements were absolutely incorrect. There is no such ordinance in Hackensack. Frankly, if there was, it would be unconstitutional action by the City Council. You remember Hague, I am the law versus CIO, I think, Morris, you know, United States Supreme Court.
It's been a while since constitutional law, but I remember.
You remember. Frank, I am the boss, Hague said, no permits in the park for the CIO to organize, no pamphlets in the park, and that's unconstitutional. But that's expression. And I went on, finished this letter. The point is this. We live in America, and freedom of political expression in public places such as parks is part of our guaranteed liberties. I know that people, especially young people, may too often defer to people in authority and accept their statements as gospel. I urge you to continue to be dynamic young people who know it is their right as Americans to express their views on political and civic issues and to question authority when appropriate. I have enclosed a copy of the city ordinance regarding parks so you may examine it yourself. Mr. Mayor, I give you a copy of this letter and a copy of your ordinance so you can familiarize yourself with it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Good evening, Lynn Horowitz, Prospect Avenue in Hackensack. Firstly, at last night's council meeting, there was a reference to a statement that was allegedly made by Councilman Sims to a Hackensack police officer on the grounds of the Hackensack High School. That's recently been mentioned. The alleged statement was very offensive. We don't know whether Mr. Sims actually made the statement or not. I believe that he should answer whether he made the statement or not. And if he did make the statement, then he owes the community of Hackensack an apology. So I would like to know, Mr. Sims, whether you made the statement or not.
I'm not going to comment on that issue.
Well, I think that you need to think about this because I think you owe the city of Hackensack and the community an apology if you did. Secondly, I want to talk a little bit about health insurance for the part-timers. Apparently, the two public defenders have no health insurance. I want to know if the council actually authorized Frank Catania's health insurance or whether Mr. Rottino did that on his own. Can you answer that for me, Mr. Mayor?
I can answer this. I didn't did not approve Mr. Catania's health
You did
insurance.
not?
I wasn't aware of it, no.
Okay, so I think that if Mr. Rotino did it, and Mr. Catania and Mr. Rotino have a business partnership, that he might be in violation of an ethics law. I'm not an attorney, but you might want to look into that.
I had
And
asked that
have-
question of council last night, actually. Mr. Scriva was here, not Mr. Morris, but I did ask that question.
And-
Or that question actually came from out of the audience,
And-
but he was instructed to look into that.
Thank you, and I have a suggestion for you. I think the council should consider having an ordinance against paying part-time health insurance, because I think it's really unconscionable. We don't need people coming in here from other communities, and we all talk about the amount of money that it's costing Hackensack for all of the things that we have to take care of here. We certainly don't need to pay somebody who's working part-time health insurance. We don't need to do that. I think we have enough problems with people coming from outside of Bergen County and paying large salaries. And I know that Mrs. Canestrino has always spoken about budget and monies and economics and so forth, and I understand that. But I think we ought to take a look at what you're doing. I mean, we're paying a lot of people a lot of money, and I come back to Mr. Amarato as well. We're paying him $78,000, and the two of you apparently are not using his services, and yet we're still paying him $78,000. And I think that needs to be looked into. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Steve Galbert, 304 Clinton Place. I didn't actually plan on speaking tonight, but I just want to follow up on something that Ms. Hurwitz said. Mr. Coster, when Mr. Catania was hired, you're the director of personnel, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I assume that the offer letter, I don't know if you want to call it an offer letter, the letter welcoming him to the city of Hackensack that went out, I'm assuming that you saw that letter before it went out as the director of personnel.
I don't know what you mean by a welcome letter. We handled
He received a
his-
letter that said that he was hired by the city of Hackensack, and it had a checklist on the very front.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that you saw that letter before it went
Yes,
out.
I did.
So, as the director of personnel, I'm assuming that you're aware that by ordinance in the city of Hackensack, the position of municipal prosecutor is a part-time position.
He was hired as a full-time prosecutor.
So I'm assuming that as the director of personnel, you are aware that there's an ordinance in the city of Hackensack that has the position of municipal prosecutor as a part-time, not full-time position.
I was told to hire him as a full-time prosecutor.
Who told you that?
That was what I was instructed when he was hired. I believe it was the past city manager.
And do you have that in writing?
No, I don't believe so. Just verbal.
Okay.
I mean,
Now-
I could check the file, but I don't think so.
To go on to the mayor and council on this issue, I've spoken, as Mr. LaBrosse, you're very well aware, I've spoken on the matter of the city council having health insurance.
Correct.
I would urge the council to get rid of health insurance for any part-time worker or appointed or elected officials. Now, you fill out the best practices questionnaire every year. You're aware that on the best practices questionnaire, you have to answer yes, that part-time and appointed and elected officials get health insurance. As I'm sure you're aware, state grant money, you get a score for filling out that questionnaire. The score on that questionnaire is directly linked to your applications for grants and state aid. So you're aware that yes answers to appointed and elected officials and part-time workers getting health insurance hurts the city's ability to qualify for grants and state aid. So I would urge that the city council get rid of all health insurance for appointed and elected officials and part-time workers. And I would appreciate if you would consider that.
I will consider that. Thank you.
Jason Denmarker, 235 Prospect Avenue. Did Mr. Rattino have too tough a night last night? That he had a...
That's out of line, Jason. Come on.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm a little confused because now we're finding out that Mr. Catania was hired as a full-time prosecutor. His health insurance application, which he signed, says he only works 30 hours a week. So how do I get a full-time job when I only have to be here 30 hours a week?
Good question.
Because, you know, I have a full-time job and I work a lot more than 30 hours a week. I was going to ask the mayor if he knew about the health insurance issue, so thank you for your candor. It's $25,000, and I understand in an operating budget of $100 million, it's a drop in the bucket. It's a lot of money to me. It's a lot of money to everybody in this room. I understand $25,000 and $100 million, but you know what? It sends a message. When you want to treat a part-time employee, give him full-time insurance, when you have the gentleman in the back who come here every day and put their life on the line, it really is offensive that a business partner of Mr. Ratino's in multiple businesses, a political ally of his, gets treated better than, you know, the former municipal clerk, a couple of different other employees who now have litigation going on against the city, the men and women in the back who protect us every day. I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you can understand the frustration when this came out. The previous city manager, despite what Mr. Ratino said last night, he didn't approve it. His application is dated January of 2014. He waited until Mr. Luacano was out. Mr. Ratino then came in and put his buddy on our health insurance dime. That's not right. That's simply wrong. And John, I've known you a long time. I consider, we've had public disputes. We will in the future. I consider you and Ms. Canestrino to be honorable people. It's not right. You know, it's not right that Mr. Amarato, okay, in a population of 44,000 people, gets paid $78,000 a year of our tax money. When he works for Bergen County with a population of $900,000 a year, he gets $35,000. Hackensack pays more than double what the county pays when the county has over 850,000 more people. I read an article in, I guess it was Sunday or Monday's newspaper, where Keith Furlong, a public consultant, works for the city of Passaic, makes $27,000 a year, and that has 70,000 people in it. And he works for the county of Passaic of over 500,000 people, and he makes $72,000 a year. Why is the city of Hackensack with Mr. Amarato backwards? And I understand now, it comes out last night that, and John, again, I take you at your word, and Kathy, you too, that it was not disclosed to you what was going on. I take you at your word of that. But Mr. Sims, and unfortunately Mr. Battaglia and Ms. Freeman are not here. Mr. Sims, why do we need an $80,000 a year taxpayer-funded spokesperson for someone to write you and Ms. Freeman's and Mr. Battaglia's statements when these guys in the back can't get a fair deal? I'm asking the question, why do we need them?
When we got elected, we all voted him in, and we're gonna.
Thank you.
I understand you got elected, and you have every right, but you know what, to Kathy and John's credit, they realized a mistake had been made, and they've taken actions to rectify it. How come the other three haven't done it? And from what I've read this morning in the newspaper, it's pretty concerning.
We're gonna look into it.
It's been over 6 weeks. How much further do you have to look into it?
All right, let's move on, Jay. Anything else?
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Daniel Carolla, 88 Clinton Place.
Evening.
Good evening, Mayor. On September 17th, the council passed resolutions naming Mr. Scrivo and his firm as city attorney. That same meeting, a resolution was passed naming Mr. Fernandez the labor attorney. What I found interesting is that on the resolution regarding the labor attorney, nowhere does it mention the firm's name. So I looked it up, and I found a familiar name, Kevin O'Toole. That name O'Toole rang a bell, and after looking around, why hide it? Because, quite frankly, that name is everywhere. I know from a record article he served on your transition team along with many others. If Mr. Amarato had not given you a deficient resume, you'd have seen that he used to work for then Assemblyman O'Toole. Mr. Attino, on 2 occasions over the past few years, has donated a total of $1,000 to Mr. O'Toole's campaign fund. Mr. Attino, in his ill-fated run for Bergen County freeholder a few years back, while having O'Toole's endorsement, racked up over $10,000 in consultant charges from the Wright Associates, Mr. Amorado's PR firm, or I guess at this point we could say his other job. Now, Mr. Scrivo and Senator O'Toole both graduated law school together, so one could assume they're at least acquaintances, if not good friends or professional colleagues. But according to state election reports, they are very good friends. May of '04, Mr. Scrivo donated $500 to Mr. O'Toole's campaign. April of '07, $1,000. April of '08, $500. March of '09, $250. March of 2010, $250. April of 2011, $500. March of 2013, $1,000. And the latest and by far the largest donation to Mr. O'Toole from Mr. Scrivo came on November 4th of this past year, less than 2 months after Mr. Scrivo was named city attorney. I wonder if he sent the check and a thank you card. Now, I
It's out of
personally...
line, Mr. Corolla.
I apologize, sir.
Please, just stick to your point.
Absolutely. Now, I personally have no quarrel with any of you, and I have no quarrel with Mr. Scrivo because he seems to possess the basic aptitude for and knowledge of the position he was put in. I don't know if the same can be said of Mr. O'Toole's other friends. Mr. Attino and Tom Amarato are the people of Hackensack supposed to believe that we're simply the recipients of Senator O'Toole's altruistic and philanthropic endeavors, or are we now paying for his people to play? Perhaps you can do the city a favor and reread your campaign literature from a year ago. You all won on rhetoric. But it seems that you're maybe failing on action. Just ask the bullied city employees, those who haven't been fired. Just ask the residents who've been attacked on social media by Mr. Amarato. And ask the hardworking men and women in the back of PBA Local 9. Mr. Mayor, with all this talk of hiring, perhaps, especially given last night's revelations, perhaps the biggest hiring mistake per se was back in 2012 when you picked your running mates. It's unfortunate, but it has to be said. We all know and we all have heard what you all think about the past, and that's all well and good, but we're here for Hackensack's future. You're here. You're all here for Hackensack's future. Not Mr. Attino's future, not Senator O'Toole's future, our future. Just step up and act like it, and for crying out loud, give those folks in the back from PBA 9 a fair deal. Thank you.
Mayor, Rich Gelber, Angry Bird. I live in Hackensack. I wasn't going to bring this up.
Sorry, I have to smile. I'm sorry, I apologize.
You didn't get that, Mayor?
I got it. I had to smile for a second.
Well, they call me
Forgive
Angry
me.
Bird. I don't know where that came from, but I don't know how angry. I'm kind of happy usually.
Please
I
continue.
wasn't happy last night, honestly, when I heard
understand.
Mrs. Dodson go off. And you know, if I've listened to her once, I've listened to her 20 times, either ripping apart Mr. Salkin, attacking school board members, absolutely ripping anyone in her area. And I find a lot of it offensive. But you know, she never gives a speech without mentioning that she went on peace walks with the Reverend King, and something dawned on me. Mrs. Dodson, what would Reverend King say about that police report?
I never said I went on in March with him.
I've heard you say that.
No,
Ms.
you
Dodson.
have not.
All right, but no back
Mayor, I
and
guess
forth
I'm
with
wrong.
the
I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I know what I heard. But that's okay. Mayor, there may be a more desperate need than I see for the park. And quite honestly, we're into that building already for $715,000 and some nominal closing fees by Mr. Zieson. You know, he was always very fair with us. We did ADA improvements in the building. I think initially $324,000 and then $50,000 more for this and $40,000 more for that. I don't believe there's a coffee pot in the place, but be that as it may. We rushed last June to have a ribbon cutting. I don't know what the rush was. We always have a rush in this city. Everything we do is in a rush, and then we have to pay for it later. The building is a very nice, it's a historic building, it's a landmark, it's absolutely beautiful to look at, the brickwork. There's major sinkholes. The roof looks like it's gonna absolutely sink in tomorrow. Mr. Iacchino defended that project. The council voted to do it. They bonded the money. Of course, we're always borrowing for everything we do. Nothing comes out of cash on hand. I mean, I guess that's not the right way to do it, but be that as it may. Think about selling 15 Green Street. That was the property we rushed into to buy Forsetto Construction. Take off the tax rolls, We had that property how many years, Mr. Canestrino? Well, I think I nagged enough, and they found a need to make it our recycling center. That's a bigger sham than when we bought it in that flood zone building, which almost became a city hall for us. I don't know if you remember that outrageous plan. But another thing we rushed into, I think we played planners how much money to come up with that plan. Thank God that didn't work. You know, if we sold that property, we could put the park in on the Atlantic Street, put the stage in, put another park at the corner of Main, one at the corner of Demorest, one at Mercer, and one at Banta. Maybe Salem too, if the parks are that important. Think about it. Let's liquidate some things we don't need before we start buying new things. Make any sense?
Absolutely. And for the record,
it's
we
a
are,
thought,
we are,
Mayor. It's a thought,
we
Mayor.
are, we are already in the process of looking to sell Green Street, just letting
I
you
had
know.
a suspicion you were. I kind of thought you were. I'll just mention another thing. Cy Chase, I think he left. I've known Cy over 50 years. Cy has an incredible track record. I think you all know that. Take us to court. That was his slogan. Does the city really want to start another legal battle? How many legal battles do we want to start? Mr. Cataldi, there was another gentleman here from 27 Warren Street. Cy was very clear about it. These guys are going to sue. They're going to tie it up. I don't know what the courts are going to do. They could, I'm sure, seek an injunction. Could they not? And that grant goes right out the window anyhow. I think we have to give possibly other thoughts of financing that project. Cy means business. I wanted to ask about the greenhouse, if there were any immediate plans for it.
I was under the impression that greenhouse was coming down. Myself, that's what we were looking at.
Is there a need that it come down, Mayor?
Well, it wasn't functioning as a greenhouse. It really were, it was supposed to produce plants that were being used around the city, but that really, I don't know if that would, maybe Mr. Costa can answer more about that, but.
Not at this time, Mayor. We're not really producing any
Yeah,
flowers
it
out
hasn't
there
been
anymore.
producing what.
But
what it should have
obviously, Mr. Costa, we're not producing. The question is, why did we for 50 years and all of a sudden we've stopped producing and now the building's going to come down? There must be a reason. There's a man there assigned, right? A gardener?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
No, there is not.
There was a few days ago, yes?
A few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago.
Yes, there was.
Okay. As far as police commissioner, I very, very rarely disagree with Mr. Salkin, but this is one time that I do disagree. I'm serious.
Make it quick, Mr.
I know,
Mayor. 5
Mr.
minutes or
Mayor.
so.
Mr. Salkin, I have a motive here. I think we should put the police commissioner issue on hold for a couple of weeks because I think there's some very, very good practicality to having Mr. Sims in a police commissioner job. I really honestly do. For the moment. That could change in a week, right, Mr. Sims? Could change in 2 weeks. I think right now it has a lot of constructive value for the city and for the kids and for recreation. Summer's coming. I know how active and involved Mr. Sims is with the youth in basketball, other programs. I think he's a great connection, and I think being police commissioner just makes it that much more attractive. Lastly, just to correct something, Mr. Catania, after an exhaustive search and a vetting process, was hired July 1st to be our prosecutor. That too was a rush. He was given this package around July 1 on his hire. Let's be very clear on the day that he signed and dated his Blue Cross application. It was 3 days after Mr. Liacino left and Rutino replaced him. Maybe it's a coincidence. I also know Mr. Liacino absolutely would not issue that insurance to him. Do you remember that, Mr. Coster? You do remember that?
Yes.
But then 3 days after, when Rutino was here, all of a sudden it became a viable thing to give Catania insurance.
I don't know the exact time, sir.
All right, it's 3 days. It's 3 days. Lastly, in closing, Mayor, I found out why all these cops are here. I got suspicious last night because I never saw so many cops in the room. I also never saw 5 DPW supervisors sitting here. They say they were here to support their boss. I don't know if that's true or they were here to intimidate possibly any sanitation or DPW guys that were coming here who were not too happy with Rutino. I find out that the police officers are expired over a year and a half on their contract. One of them shared with me that if they get the raise that they're fighting for, Some of them are going to be out of pocket thousands of dollars a year negative with the rising medical costs.
Rich, you're way over your 5, and I'm not going to
Mayor,
go into the
all I'm
I don't
gonna
want to get
ask-
into the contract discussions with the.
No, I don't want to discuss the contract because I
I
have no
understand what
idea
you're
what they're
saying,
even
though,
looking
but
for,
it
Mayor.
has
But
an
I'm just
effect.
going to ask you, please be sympathetic. This town is
Absolutely
valueless
sympathetic.
without a happy police department.
I agree
Thank you.
100%. Thank you.
Debbie LaBrosse, 18 Brook Street. I'm also here asking that you give a fair contract is given to the police department. For years, they suffered under a despicable chief, a disgusting chief. They had to endure a lot. I know that the firemen have settled their contract. I would hope that they would get at least the same. We live in a town where I would like to think the police officers are comfortable and not worried about things they need not be worried. The second thing I want to talk about, Mr. Coster, is that health insurance. You said before Mr. Liacono gave it to Mr. Catania.
I said he was hired as a full-time employee.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, that he was hired as a full-time employee.
Okay, so then how do you explain the fact that the insurance did not come into play until Mr. Otino took over?
I have no explanation on the date or time. I don't have an explanation for that.
Well, it happened mid-December. That's when the application was filled out.
Okay.
I know he was requested earlier and he was told no.
But as a full-time employee, he would be entitled.
Okay, as a full-time employee, he does have pay records, hours worked records, right?
He puts in time both in the courts and in his office preparing for the,
He prepares
For
for
the
a docket he
cases.
doesn't yet have?
I'm sorry?
He prepares for a docket he doesn't yet have?
I would defer to the city attorney. I think you would know more of the process of a prosecutor.
In terms of preparation he has to do for a hearing?
And no, from his job, what he does in his office to prepare for the courts or after.
Well, I have limited knowledge about the court's work in Hackensack, but I have served as a
His time
municipal
isn't just
prosecutor.
spent here as a prosecutor.
There is some time in terms of research and preparation for trials, particularly 2C issues and DUI trials, but I can't speak personally to what Mr. Catania
So I
practices.
can't either, sir, but I know there is time spent other than in the court.
Okay, so that time would be documented somewhere, yes?
I would assume it would be, I don't think there was any pay record. There's not a pay sheet.
How could that not be, how could there be no pay record?
There has never been a pay sheet for any prosecutor that I know of. They're just hired to put in the time, do their job. I'm sorry, but there is not a pay sheet.
So how do we know?
He's a salaried position.
I'm a salary position. I swipe a card when I get there, I swipe a card when I leave.
Sorry, it's not a process here in Hackensack.
Okay, I would like to ask the council to please look into this. It just does not seem right.
As I said before last night, and through me, to this city attorney, it's being looked into. Thank you. Next, please.
I came here to ask for some things regarding Hackensack Medical Center and the homeless shelter, but just to follow back with what Ms. LaBrosse said, when there's a change in personnel, shouldn't City Council approve? No?
Not in that case. No, that's an
Okay.
appointment.
Meaning if somebody was hired part-time and they go on full-time, shouldn't there be a...
That's an appointed position. It was an appointed position by the council, and by ordinance, is a part-time position.
So then the full-time, you just...
Should not count, in my opinion.
Okay, just to make sure. A few months ago, I came here to express concerns about Hackensack Medical Center and the city of Hackensack, the contracts and the taxes that they pay, if they pay taxes in the buildings, and there were no contracts. Something was given to me, but it was, not the information that I really wanted, and I wanted to know what the update with that is. Are the contracts existing, or?
Which, excuse me, Ms. Martinez, which particular contract were you looking for?
The one with the parking lot, and also if they pay taxes?
Yeah, certain buildings pay, 20 Prospect pays taxes. I believe
The
the main parking lot pays taxes, and I believe 62nd Street, which is the Hillcrest building, was deemed as to be taxable.
Has
20
anybody
20
requested the contracts that the city does not have on file?
I remember I'd asked the clerk, I think I asked for the developer's agreement for the cancer center and the parking garage, and I did get some information on
I
that.
think we found one, but
Right, and I was waiting for more, but that developer's agreement was done in 2000, I'm gonna say 8? Actually, Mr. Salk would know that answer.
I'm sorry not to work, but if you need those
Yes.
documents, I've got copies.
There you go.
I'll provide them to the clerk.
Yes.
okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
My other concerns were regarding the homeless shelter. I had requested the budget for the homeless shelter because over the summer there were some concerns, with the homeless people being around the city and not attending their services that they're supposed to be attending during the day. And I requested for the budget for since it was built, and I don't see anything there that is giving to the city of Hackensack. I know that the homeless shelter receives grants, and I want to know if the city of Hackensack receives any type of funding from the grants that the homeless shelter receives, being that the homeless shelter is located in our town. And I know when certain cases take place, the police station needs to be called, not necessarily the county.
We met recently, myself, the deputy mayor, police director, along with the shelter and other organizations, county organizations, and it was actually brought up where we were looking to partner up with and maybe put a couple of police officers down at the shelter, which the county would reimburse us for. That was something we were looking to do. There's another meeting coming up. Unfortunately, we only meet like quarterly, like 3 times or 4 times a year. But that's been put out there, was actually put out there by a police director, kind of similar to the SRO situation in the school.
Okay.
We'd have somebody down at 2 shifts down at the shelter.
Homeless shelter. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Regina DePasqua, Parker Avenue. Happy birthday, Councilman Sims.
Thank you.
Happy Municipal Clerks Week, Ms. Clausen. My condolences to Mr. Battaglia. That's a tough thing, losing your parent, I know. I am sorry Ms. Greenman and Mr. Rotino are not here because, well, maybe they'll watch the videotape and they'll hear what we have to say. But I strongly feel you do not owe anything to Mr. Rotino, Mr. Amarato, or Mr. Catania. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe them a job. You don't owe them anything. That's how I feel. But you do owe the residents. You owe the residents, and you owe a contract to our police department. You owe it to them. And as I said last night, get rid of Amarato, get rid of paying for Catania's health benefits, and coincidentally, those are the first 2 things on their shirts. We'll pay for it. We'll pay for them. We need them. We need them. We don't need Mr. Catania to have health benefits, and we do not need Mr. Amarato. I think Mr. Amarato is divisive. I think he has done more harm. He's supposed to be a public relations expert. How good are we looking right now? I don't think so good. I don't think so good. I think he has divided you. I think he has put a wedge in there, because I have dealt with the man one-on-one, and I know how he can be. According to him, I am a fool. According to Mr. Amarato, I am a fool, and I bring nothing to the table. That's Mr. Amarato's opinion of me. How he could say that about me, I don't know. Anybody that knows me knows that is furthest thing from the truth. So if that's his opinion of me, who you have known for a long time, and you have not known Mr. Amarato that long, come on, guys, come on. I'm very, very, very emphatic that we do not need Amorato. At all, but we need our police. The ordinance, as you said, the ordinance for the municipal prosecutor is part-time. And the paperwork shows Mr. Rotino gave Mr. Catania, his friend, health benefits, like within 3 days of him taking the position. That's incredible. And then he says last night, I believe he said a council member gave him permission, authorized it. I have put in an Oprah request. Find out who said that, who gave him permission to do that. I really want to know who said it was okay to do that. Because it wasn't you, wasn't you. Was it you, Dave? Okay. But still, we do not have a police contract. Mr. Rotino said last night there was one issue left. I think the issue is the entire contract because we don't have it. There's no rush to make him city manager. That's the beauty of having an interim. You do not have to rush. You can take your time and find the right person for the job. Anthony Rotino is not the right person for the job. He is not. He also, I have had one-on-one conversations with him. I am a resident. He is nasty. He is obnoxious. He is a bully. And I don't appreciate being spoken to. With everything I have said about Mr. Lacano, he was always a gentleman. He was always a gentleman. He did not degrade the position. I feel Mr. Rotino does. And if he's watching this, gonna watch this, oh well. And Mr. Amorato, I have a feeling that he's been putting bugs in some people's ears to get the support because if Anthony's not here, Tom's not here. So he wants to keep Anthony here for sure, right? They're a team. They're a package deal. You know, I think Catania, health benefits, if Rotino goes back to development, let's see how he does. And Amorato must go. He must go. But most importantly, the police deserve better than they've gotten.
Thank you.
I do want to point out the police officers.
First?
Our police officers
Excuse
have
me
done
one
a
second.
great job,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
have done a great job under this new police director, and I think they do deserve their contract ASAP. With regard to the public defender and the prosecutor, I think most of those questions can be answered by Mr. Salkin, who served in that position last year, the year before that, I think. And I believe that if you're like the school board as the attorney, you do bill hourly when you're researching things. So maybe the prosecutor, I don't know the answer to that, but Mr. Salkin may be able to answer that.
It's the salary, there's no hourly billing for the prosecutor, though.
Okay, and I know this is not the school board, so it's not similar to the school board. Thank you. Excuse me, I'm asking him. There was one other thing. Oh, we voted you in as a team. As a team, if there's a problem, you need to work it out and come out here as, a group. You may not have the same opinions. We didn't ask for someone to rubber stamp. We didn't ask for one spokesperson. We voted for a council. So you need to get your act together and act as a total council. I don't believe there's a coup if 3 people have a different opinion or 2 people have a different opinion. I believe that, Mr. LaBrose, I believe you stated that in the paper, or either the paper stated that you said there was a coup.
Mm-hmm.
A difference of opinion is not necessarily a coup.
My statement wasn't based on a difference of opinion. It had nothing to do with being outvoted or anything like that.
Okay, then why do you think there's a coup?
I'm not going to get into that right now. But believe
I'm
me,
sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm not going to explain that right now in public.
Okay, so you made a statement as the mayor, but you can't explain it to the citizens. Because
I
I want to
can.
know,
I'm
I
not
want
gonna
to know
explain it
who
at
you
this
consider
time.
to be the coup. And if that's the case, then there's a problem. The coup may be the other two, the coup may be the three, but if you felt there were a coup, then I think you should be able to explain it to us as citizens of Hackensack.
I feel at this time, all right, I'll explain it to you. This is my take on it. I feel at this time, there was, about a month ago, myself and Kathy, actually Kathy wasn't here, but she did it through me. We decided not to use Mr. Amarato for, as our spokesperson. We said we do our own writing. There was a reason for that, which,
For your personal spokesperson.
as for anything, we will speak to the press ourselves. I personally wanted nothing to do with Mr. Amarato, and I pretty much said my say in the paper saying,
Okay, but there was some type of vote or hiring for him as the council's spokesperson.
correct. And I
So
felt,
individually,
if
you feel that.
my article, my quote in the paper was, had I had known he worked for the county full-time, it wasn't disclosed on his RFQ, to me,
Okay.
that should have been disclosed to me, all right? When you're working somebody full-time and getting benefits, and you don't tell me and I hire you, I have a problem with that. That's my take on
I'm
that.
just asking that.
Mrs.
the council
Canestrino
as a
shared the
whole,
same opinion.
Please do your research before you hire these people so that there are no questions like that. You need to research who you hire.
You're correct, that slipped by.
You just can't hire
That
people.
Definitely,
not know where
you're
they-
100%
what they
right, man.
work for, or where they
that slipped
work,
by.
or what their hourly rates are,
That
or
slipped
what
by.
towns they're working for. But you need to do your research. My main thing, though, is get our police officers the contract. They deserve it. They're doing a
I
wonderful
agree
job in
100%
this
with you.
town.
I agree 100% with you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and
Good
Council. My name is Paul in Calcaterra, and I live next to the Cultural Center. And I want to make sure that you guys have the schedule that was given to Jackie today, and that you are aware of the events that take place there. Now, this week and next week, there are allowed events. Right before I left, they were using the drums. Just for a short time, I don't know how long. One of the benefits of going to a council meeting here is they last long. So when I go home, it's all over, okay? But I shouldn't have to do that.
I agree.
And I want you to please bear in mind that I live there and I pay almost $200 a week taxes. I want you to know what happens when those drums go off.
Yes, he brought a drum. All right, we got your point, Paul. We got it. I understand.
I'm 20 feet away from those 12-foot windows. Okay, if they move those drums as I've been told to on the other side, I still hear it. Okay, so if there's an event there, I can bear with it on an event 1 or 2 nights. Okay, but when they have rehearsals and when they have events multiple times, it affects the quality of life for me. So I'm asking you to please take a look at that schedule.
Absolutely.
There are some events that are coming for the future. And just let me know, I want to be a good neighbor, and they should be a good neighbor too.
Well, we won't get those till tomorrow. Our packages didn't
Okay.
come today. We will get them tomorrow, though.
Okay.
They'll be in our package.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Paul. Next, please. You can give him more than 5 minutes.
Mike Mordaga, Police Director, City of Hackensack. I'm here tonight to tell a story, and I'm hoping if I take a little bit over 5 minutes that the officers don't remove me. But if Mr. Sorkin wants to come up and get me, he can do that. Okay, I know that. In 2012, late 2012, I got a call from the PBA Local 9, members of PBA Local 9, to meet with them about the issues that were taking place in the police department. There's no secret in Bergen County or the state of New Jersey what was taking place with our police department in the city of Hackensack. It was in chaos. There was a great deal of turmoil taking place, and my career was in this police department. My whole life was with the city of Hackensack, the police department. I went to high school here. My family, my friends are from here. And I take a great deal of pride in the city. But more importantly, I was out of the game, and when I talked to the members of the PBA, and I listened to them, I looked at their faces, and I heard the passion that they had and where they wanted to go with the police department at the time. They were asking me to come back. And it was a commitment to me because of where I was in my professional life. But I came back for two reasons. I came back for the people of Hackensack, for the city, and I came back for the members of the Hackensack Police Department to help them turn the police department around. What I found when I came here was because of what was taking place in the streets of Hackensack, criminals had gotten emboldened. They were walking the streets. They were selling drugs blatantly. And I'm not saying that cops weren't out here doing their job. I'm not saying that. But there was a lot more involved as to, possibly why it wasn't being done to the full extent that it should have been. And I support them in their position then professionally and what they're doing now, because I can tell you this, that when I got on the police department, one of the commitments I had was not to stand behind them, but to stand in front of them. And that's what I'm doing tonight by coming forward with the city council and basically telling them, here's what these people have done in a little over a year. They've reduced the crime rate by almost over 30%. Burglaries are cut in half. There's sleepy communities in Bergen County that have more burglaries than the city of Hackensack. They've increased the arrests from 1,200 arrests to almost 2,700 arrests in 1 year. They made approximately 1,200 narcotic arrests on the street. They arrested approximately 300 drug dealers. And these numbers may not mean anything when you listen to the numbers, but when you drive around the streets of Hackensack and you see the changes, when the Main Street Alliance calls me and tells me the job that these officers are doing, the professionalism that they see from our officers, the Chamber of Commerce calling me, residents calling me, and I think it's my obligation. It's not just my duty to work for the city, but it's my obligation as the police director to stand with my officers, support my officers, stand in front of my officers, and I believe that you, as a city council, and I believe Mr. Vertino, is working hard and working diligently right now to figure out how to make this work. I really believe that. I've had conversations with Mr. Vertino. He's telling me he's trying to make it work. The PBA, I know, is going to be meeting with Mr. Vertino. And I think that's very important because of where they came from and where they are now. I think if we don't make this work, it sends a terrible message to them. And I'm not going to say that they're not going to do their job. They're going to continue to do their job just like they're doing it now. But we're on the roll right now. We're moving forward. These officers are doing a great job, and I want to continue it that way. And I know the city does. I know Mr. Vertino does. I know the mayor and council does. And just like we could find emergency funds to fill potholes, to whenever there's an emergency in the city, we can find the money. And I don't know what the percentages are that they're asking for. All I'm saying is somehow let's make it work for these cops, and that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Could you give your name and address to the clerk, please?
My name is Ghazi Garib. I own commercial tire service in the Green Street.
Okay.
All I need to know the update and the problem across the street from Polo Flight Towing.
Well, probably there was an ordinance tonight, or a resolution.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to provide a brief update?
Yes, if you could, please. Thank you.
Flight Towing has agreed to vacate the premises by May 31st, among other things that are being worked out in a settlement agreement right now. So they will be out off the property by May 31st.
May 31st?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but according to my, I've been taking pictures every day. There is more cars come to the property every day. And the property is still a mess. And I want to know after he leave the property, who will be responsible
He will.
for the
For the cleanup?
environmental,
He will.
the property.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
He will.
Hello, Tony Haverty,
Hi, Tony.
Berry Street, Hackensack. I just want to comment on the article in the paper today because I felt I was very disturbed by it. First of all, a coup. A coup really is a sudden overthrowing of a government, often by a small militia group, to replace the current government with another body. I don't know, it doesn't sound like this is really a coup. My question is, are the other 3 members not allowed to vote how they see things? If they're not allowed to vote how they see things, this is not a democracy, and this is not a free society. Do you throw your fellow council members under the bus because they have a difference of opinion? What I listened to last night was a small group of people who have an axe to grind. They want to run you because they can't sit in your seats. Is this leadership? Is this what you promised the people of Hackensack? The orchestrated litany of libelous accusations against Mr. Rotino crossed multiple boundaries. There is nothing wrong with questioning qualifications, but this became personal. And, Mr. Mayor, you did nothing to stop it. I see the disagreements that we have always had in our group now turning venomous. Lies, manipulation have taken its toll. I can't tell the difference. I'm starting to see. It's hard for me to see the difference between you and the people we worked hard to replace you with. Replace. Rest assured that if the people of Hackensack who worked so hard to get you into office don't see a change and return to the promises made when you came to office, we will work even harder to get you out. Shame on you for giving in to people with personal agendas who only feign concern for the city of Hackensack. These people have proven time and time again that their only interest is to create dissension and chaos. We, the citizens who really care about our hometown, seek out solutions to problems. And we hope that you would feel the same way. The city council needs to work together. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and all the city council members. Good evening, everyone. I didn't come to speak tonight. I'm a young man living in the city. I was just observing, and then based on, the conversations, I just decided I just wanted to say something quickly. First, I want to thank you for fixing the potholes. Streets were looking very bad after the horrible winter we had, so the cars were suffering. So thank you very much. And I want to just say thank you again, Mr. Modaga, for doing a wonderful job. I commend you and the police officers. Hackensack. But sitting over there and just listening, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. And there's a lot of weak links around here. The city council is divided. And if it continues to be divided, Hackensack will go backwards, it can never go forwards. It doesn't matter how much we come up here and we talk, you're in charge of the town. And if it doesn't matter what goes on, things should be resolved, but if it continues to be that way, Hackensack will never go forward. And if the city council is divided, the town manager is not on board, I'm not gonna get into all that stuff because I don't know a lot of it, just from listening. What happened, the people that should benefit here is the residents of Hackensack. Not other people who are profiting from campaign promises and friends and maybe nepotisms and cronyisms. The people that should benefit are our people that lives in this town. The taxpayers, our taxes are very high and they continue to escalate as we speak. Who speaks on the behalf of us? No one. I hear people talk all night about Mr. Amarado and all those people. I don't know them, but I don't hear you talk much about the people of Hackensack. Without us, there's no city. And that's disturbing. And I live here and my son is growing up here, and what do we have to offer them? Just bickering and people being defensive and people don't even know what's going on in the city? I say shame on you. To all the people that are in charge, I say shame on you. Where I work in my business, there's accountability, and I don't see any accountability here. Mr. LeBose, I see you're trying, and I hear different people come up, and barbs are being thrown. We can't get anywhere like that. They got to stick together, work together, and that's the only way we can progress. And that's just my observation from listening to what's going on. It's too divided, and listen to the residents coming up. It's all division. How can we grow? We're just going backwards in Hackensack. It's a big city, and it's a shame. So I would say let's get together, bond together, city council, whoever the city manager is going to be, the residents, stop throwing barbs. Come with some solutions. Don't continue to compound the problem. Just come with solutions, come with constructive criticism. And let's move forward, and let's grow Hackensack. Thank you.
Kathleen Sava, 184. I'm just going to commend the last gentleman. That's the feelings that I have and a lot of people in this room do. When you people got elected, we were looking for change and we were looking for things to happen, things that better happen. There's a lot of very intelligent people in this room, and we hope we bring to the table constructive criticism. We hope we come here with ideas and just letting you see the other side of the coin. I take offense in seeing that all these developers who do not live in Hackensack, we've been everybody's cash cow for years, and how they all run like bees to ants to a piece of honey or bees to honey, trying to get you to do everything so fast. Like Mr. Gelber said, what's the hurry? We have to think things out. You have to think, if you do plan A, what's going to happen with plan B, or what's the effect going to be? There's no rush to do any of these things. So don't let them bully you into doing it. They're trying to get your money before you think about it. It's like gambling, gamble it away and then it's all gone. So before you make any of these important decisions that will affect us forever, give it a break. And I resent the fact that they stepped in ahead of us. We asked you to take care of our city for issues that are here, specifically a dysfunctioning building department, very dysfunctional. And this man that just came up who talked about being next door to Polyfire Towing, he's still being harassed by the building department, and this should not happen. And we need people in the building department and the maintenance, the property maintenance, to do their jobs because it's not working. So this has to be addressed. The police department, thanks to Michael Medega and the director, is really, really doing a great job. And I was surprised to see them here again tonight with their shirts. You had to make them go out and buy those shirts. I thought everything was going to be resolved as of last night. It seemed like we were there and it was going to happen, and then they all appear again. Just quickly, last night when people were getting unruly, I said to the person next to me, how come there's not a policeman there? She goes, they're all in the back of the room. I forgot that we had a whole police presence in the back of the room to protect us. I was looking for the one guy that's usually by the door. We need to put all this energy into positive things. There can't be any kind of bickering. We need to get the right people for the right job. Like we said last night, there's a lot of people out there that are willing to work in Hackensack, and let's get the best people. And I really appreciate my police department. Like I said, when they were dysfunctional, they were getting paid top dollar. Now that they're the best ever, they have to be begging for this raise. Don't let that happen. Let them get it quickly. Thank you.
Hi, Ruth Newstatter, 279 Hamilton Place. It's good to be back in this room. I lost both my parents, so I haven't been able to be around for quite a while. And what I do feel, based on this article that's in the record today, Tension Grips Hackensack Council, it seems to me that when we brought you into office, you were a breath of fresh air after all of the years we had so many difficulties. And and I'm listening to all the comments of everyone in this room about Anthony Rotino and Tom Amarato and the dissension that it's created in the council. It seems to me that in order to resolve this issue, I think it makes sense to start from scratch. And I know that you are interviewing people for the position of city manager, which is, if I'm correct, probably it is the most important position in the city. We need to get somebody really, really good. And perhaps what might make sense is to prevent any future problems, not to only have the city council interview somebody new, aside from these two gentlemen, but to have citizens from the city, people who have been involved with the city for a great deal of time and who know what's going on, help in the interview process. So for once and for all, we get somebody who really knows what they're doing and can put the city on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Seeing none, a motion to close to the public.
I'll offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is now closed to the public. It's time for the council to speak. Mrs. Canestrino?
Where do I begin? I'd like to say, this is my view. My view of us as a council is that we're a team. We're a team that works together to provide the best resources, the best services, the best environment for our residents here in town. We weren't elected as a team, so to speak, okay? You didn't go to the polls and pick one box for Citizens for Change. You voted for Kathy Canestrino, for John LaBrosse, for Dave Sims, for Rose Greenman, for Leo Battaglia. And that's who we are. We're 5 independent people. We're not 5 cookie cutters. So there's going to be times when we don't always agree on everything that comes before us. And I personally see that as a good thing. I mean, many times we'll bring things to the table, we'll sit around the table, and you know what? I'll say, I never thought of it that way. You know, or someone else would say, did you consider this? And I think that's how we come to the best decisions and the best solutions, by working together and listening to one another. But when there are times that we can't reach that decision, and a decision still needs to be made, the rule is there's 5 of us, and the majority makes that decision. And all of us accept that fact and move forward with that fact. To me, when I walk in that door, and all of us walk in that door to have a discussion, we have to leave our egos at the door. If we aren't the majority, we can't be mad, we can't be upset. We know that we're a team, and the majority makes that decision. Now, we're relatively new, so we still have a little growing pains, and I ask you to be a little patient with us, okay? Because here's what happens, is there's some of us that think when we make that decision, even though some of us don't agree, we will support that majority decision. Do we come out here and tell you, yes, I think that's the best thing to do, when in our hearts, we know it is not? Or do we be open and honest with you and say, this is the majority decision and this is what's going to happen, but for the sake of openness and transparency, I am going to tell you my view. I'm not going to be mad about it. I'm not going to separate myself from the other parts of the majority. I'm just going to speak openly and honestly to you, as I think I've always done with you, right? And that makes it a little bit hard sometimes. That makes it a little bit hard, because you want to say, here's my view, but you have to be very careful not to offend others who have a different view. And we are trying to get there. It is my firm belief, and I hope you will support that each and every one of us, that you want to hear from us. Here's why I don't think this is the right thing to do. Mayor LaBrosse and myself, we had certain things that were brought to the forefront with us, and we had to make the decision to disassociate ourselves from Mr. Amarato. That was our decision. It was something once you lose trust, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to go back once that trust is broken. And it's very difficult to allow someone to put words in your mouth that you do not trust. And basically, that was something I could not do. And that's a personal decision that I make. Absolutely, all five of us do not feel that trust was broken. And I respect each and every member's ability to have that feeling and would never take it away from them. The majority here decided they have that trust, they want that capability, and the city is marching forward in that direction. But I still feel you had the right to hear what Kathy Canestrino feels about that and convey that message to you. Now, there's a lot of talk, and I don't want to belabor the point, there's a lot of talk about how did this salary come, and how did you do this, and how did you do that? And yes, we were making a lot of decisions in the beginning that had to be made for us to move forward. But I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how that salary came to be, just so you understand. All right, the prior administration had a consulting firm that was doing the PR work totally for the redevelopment environment, because we were trying to have a redevelopment strategy, project a new image, et cetera. So they were paying someone $48,000 a year, $4,000 a month, to do the PR work just for the redevelopment. When Mr. Amarato's contract was derived, that organization was displaced, and he had a twofold role. He replaced the $48,000 role of doing the PR work for redevelopment, and he was given another $2,500 a month to do the city PR. So the salary, the $6,500 a month, was the same old $4,000 we were always paying, but now to him, and he agreed to also do the city public relations work for another $2,500. That's how the decision was made. Was it the correct decision? Could we have gotten a better price? Everything can always be negotiated. But let's not try and throw stones and say he was a political friend and we just created some salary out of thin air. We did not. All right? So I think I also owe you that explanation. Even though I think you understand my feelings towards him, you have to understand the justification of where this began. Okay, so I hope that puts that to rest. As far as the city manager position, I think we're all moving forward together in the right direction. I think as I explained to you, we've done 2 rounds of interviews. We're giving Mr. Rottini the opportunity to do 6 months on the job so we can also evaluate his criteria compared to the others. All of us want to make a unanimous decision because this is the most important job in the city. Whoever brought that up tonight, they're absolutely correct. And we owe it to ourselves and to all of you to make that very important decision and to make it correctly. And we will. A couple quick things about the issues with Mr. Catania's insurance. We're looking into it. When it was brought to our attention, it was something that the mayor took the initiative to have our attorneys get involved, and we're absolutely looking into it. The municipal prosecutor was an appointment by the city council. That appointment was made July 1st. We have a city ordinance that states very specifically the municipal prosecutor is a part-time position. Ordinance number 755. I think I've looked at it so many times I have it committed to memory. Okay, so we know that's there, and we're trying to work together to resolve that issue. Someone else was, I think it was Mr. Gelber, Rich Gelber was talking about, have we looked into some of our properties and what can we sell and what should we keep and are we doing the right thing as a city? Absolutely. One of the first things we did when we came into office was get a list of all the properties that the city owns. How do you think we discovered that these Green Street leases weren't being paid? Right? That was going property to property and trying to identify, what were we using this for? What's happening here? So that was absolutely 100% on our radar. You're absolutely correct. And we agree, the property there on the corner of Green Street is not the best use perhaps to just be storing salt, okay? And we're also looking at, can we make that into something that's much more valuable and turn it into, sell it and turn it into ratables for the city as well. So we are in that process, and that's definitely one of the things that's on our hit list. What else do we do? Let's see real quick. I tried to make notes. Okay, as far as our police officers, I know I spoke about this last night. I can't speak for the two council members that aren't here, but the three of us the three council majority were sitting right here. We spoke about this again as we walked in. And this council is 100% behind our police officers. And we're appreciative of everything you do every day for us and for the residents of this community. And we are extremely confident that you're going to work well together with our city manager. I think we're very, very close. And I think there's a meeting tomorrow, yes? And I was hoping we would have good news tonight. Whoever mentioned that, we were hoping for that. But I think we're getting closer and closer. And I think there's going to be an amicable agreement that everyone is going to be feel good about, and everyone's going to be proud of. And we're 100% supporting our police officers, absolutely. Last thing, real quick about the parks. I talked about it last night. Just a real quick statement. Success breeds success. Right? People or organizations that are successful, they love to talk about their success, yes? Right? And a big part of what Mr. Reiner has done, our planner, and our economic development director, Mr. Rotino, has done is look to other cities, other towns that have had successful redevelopments. And how did they do it? What were some of the first steps that they took to encourage a renaissance? Because I truly believe that Hackensack is on the forefront for a major rebirth, or major renaissance. And I think it's going to be to all of our advantages. And one of those things was showing an investment in the city by the city. Showing our developers, we believe in our town. We believe in this redevelopment. We see this future for our community. Right? And part of that is enabling green space in the downtown, making it amenable, bringing people here after 4 o'clock, making a reason for people to want to come to our downtown after 4 o'clock when it now turns empty. So I continue to support it, and I ask you please to continue to be open-minded as we move forward in that process. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Sims.
Mike and your officers in the back, on behalf of the citizens of Hackensack, we thank you for making it safe. I know you have a meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. with the city manager, and hopefully we can work this contract out once and for all. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening and the birthday wishes. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah, where do we start? I'll start with the police. I'm sure this police department, the ones that know me, I know there's some new guys here who don't know myself or my family or my wife that well, but the ones that do know the support we've given you through the years, all right? I went through a 3.5-year lawsuit with this previous chief that we had with my wife, which took a major toll in my family, all right? But most of that was for standing behind you guys, all right? And I stand behind you now. You guys definitely deserve a good contract, all right? I'm praying and hoping tomorrow that that gets accomplished, all right? The last thing the city wants is to be at odds with their police department. You guys deserve a good contract, and we're behind you getting one. You know, it's up to the guys, the number crunchers, to take care of this, and we want to see that get done. Moving on, you know, when I got into this years ago, I did it because I felt I was doing the right thing. Every morning when I get up, I try to do the right thing. I think my wife, my family, and what can I do for the city? And every time I make a move I think about what's right for Hackensack. As this incident with Mr. Amarato was just about that. Is it right for Hackensack? And my decision was no. I have to go with my instinct and my loyalty to this city and the citizens of this town, their city, to, excuse me, to do the right thing. And in my opinion, I did the right thing. Moving forward from that, this council stayed here last night till 1:30 in the morning, working, right? Mrs. Canestrino had to be at a medical procedure at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, all right? We stayed here till 1:30 in the morning to work things out. We're working things out, folks. Things, you know, we're not the cookie cutter council. We've seen that. Nobody liked that one either, right? Matter of fact, everybody said, oh, they hate when everybody comes out here and votes the same all the time. Well, guess what? This group doesn't. We all speak our minds. We're free thinkers. And we have the right to vote with our conscience. I have no problem losing a vote. I believe in democracy. That's why I'm here. But that doesn't mean I'm going to lessen my values and on something I believe. And in that case, I didn't. And I stood up for what I thought was right, and they're perfectly entitled to move forward with what they want. That's their right. That's democracy. Mr. Salkin, you still here?
Yes.
Oh, you moved. I apologize, but I will honestly tell you
Yes, sir.
that that ordinance was explained to me by a past council member when I myself had a badge on in the park.
Now listen, don't listen to council members. You got.
Well,
Maybe
and that's,
maybe
and you know
some
what,
shade
shame,
tonight, but
you,
it's the
you
right
are,
guy.
you are correct, shame on me, I took it at its word when it happened to me.
Maybe you got snooker, John. You know what I'm saying?
I will be talking with Mike Melfi soon, thank you.
Show him the
But,
ordinance.
And I totally believe in the democratic process and being able to be out there like that. And and I even told the guys, I said, no one's running against you, so what's the difference anyway?
It was just that the kids were here and I just felt that they needed to.
Well, and I myself, when I get the letter, I myself will apologize to that group because there was no harm intended in that, certainly.
I know you didn't do it
All right.
intentionally, John. I understand.
This council will continue to work together. Unfortunately, two are not here tonight. And our goal is to do what's right for this city. And, you know, this is a bump in the road and a pothole, so to speak, and we'll fill it. All right? I wish everybody a safe trip home. Everybody say a prayer tonight for Mr. Battaglia's mom down in Ecuador. And thank you, everybody. Oh. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Motion to close. I just did.